Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be looking at how I got 2k score in Rated.io and Mythic Plus by just pugging. And this is going to be somewhat of an adventure video because I've been trying to get 2k, or recently I've gotten 2k score in Rated.io in terms of doing Mythic Plus, and that is about I think 4 or 5 plus 20 keys and then the rest of the keys in 19s. And I was really proud and really happy about this achievement because I was really surprised that I was able to achieve this by just joining a random groups or a bunch of different random players with no Discord, with very little communication. And honestly, it was really surprising to me, and I wanted to document my experiences, what I've learned in terms of how to get invited. And this is going to be really toxic, the most toxic part of the video, preparation for things like that, and some of the add-ons that I use. And honestly, again, let's go and begin this story time video with how to get invited. Let's go. Now, as I mentioned, getting invited is probably the most toxic part of the video because honestly, timing a high key or a hard key is one thing, getting invited is another. I think both of those are equally difficult because honestly, if you're just like, again, solo player, you can actually play this game, which is an MMO game, without actually doing a lot of social interaction. And I think that's what I actually achieved in this video. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, let me know in the comments and things like that. So generally speaking, everything I did was solo, and getting invited or listing yourself to a group and actually getting that invite was probably the hardest part of this whole experience, because honestly, there are two things that are gonna get you invited. Rated.io, which is basically a score based on how high of a key you did for each of the dungeons available in Shadowlands, and your class. And those, or combination of those things, is going to get you an invite. And because I am doing solo content, because I am joining these pug groups, a lot of these pug groups will try to maximize the success of the key, and they're going to be extremely elitist in terms of what classes they're inviting, extremely elitist in terms of what score they require. Like for example, I needed a plus 20 mist of Tierna Sight, which to complete my 2k score, and I actually waited around for about an hour to get that key. I saw about 3 or 4 plus 20 Mist of Tierna Sights, but I didn't get invited to them. I only got invited to one of those. And I got to see it. Once I got invited to a key, I got to see how many people were applying. And there were about 50 players in about 20 seconds of that key being listed. So there is a huge supply of players looking to do high keys, and there might not be that many high keys. So the owners or holders of those keys get to be really kind of elitist. And don't get too discouraged if you're like, oh, I didn't get invited because of that class, or because I'm playing that class I didn't get invited. There's a high chance that there were so many other players that had higher IO score, higher gear, and better class that applied, that there was just no chance of you getting invited anyways, because it's just insanely cutthroat competition at these keys. In terms of the class disparity that I've seen in these 20 and 19 keys that I was doing, honestly, 90% of those keys were consisting of Vengeance Demon Hunter, Fire Mage, Marksmanship Hunter, and probably a Balanced Druid. The meta of 3 ranged has been pretty solid so far, especially on these Mythic Plus weeks where you have Storming, Spiteful, where being a melee is a bit awkward. Now, besides those 3 range, like I mentioned, Fire Mage, Marksmanship Hunter, and Balanced Druid, I probably have seen maybe a Windwalker in there, probably the most popular melee that I've seen in terms of the high pug keys. I have seen a Rogue. I would consider a Rogue to be quite rare in my opinion. I think I've seen 1 or 2 Rogues, Unholy DK, in a couple of the runs, and they did really well as well. But generally speaking, they were pretty rare. A lot of the times, like I mentioned, those 3 range classes have been insanely sought after, where if you were to apply to a key, you might see, hey, we're looking for a 20 Spires or something, and we need a Vengeance Demon Hunter, we need a Fire Mage, we need a Hunter, we need a Balanced Druid. Like, that's pretty common, where they actually list the classes they need for that key. And a lot of times it's going to be that. In terms of healers, again, I played the Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman was probably the most sought after healer for high keys. So because I was playing Resto Shaman, because I had good gear and I had decent IO score, I would get invited for a lot of these keys. I know that a lot of other healers who play off meta, they probably would have horror stories to say. Resto Shaman was definitely one of those healers where you would see a key being listed, and you probably would see looking for Resto Shaman. probably the most or the second most popular healer that I saw people looking after or trying to get was Holy Paladin actually. I've seen a lot of groups looking for Holy Paladin, especially Ventier. You have to remember that the 2 Ventier dungeons, Sanguine Depths and Halls of Atonement, they require a Ventier because for high keys, the Ventier bonus is extremely solid. And mainly the couple of healers that would do that, possibly Resto Shaman, might go Ventier, Discipline Priest, or Holy Paladin. A lot of the DPS will never be Ventier. Like for example, the meta right now is Fire Mage, which probably will be again Night Fae. Marksmanship Hunter might be Night Fae, Balanced Druid might be Night Fae. So all of a sudden you actually need a Ventier to complete those keys, and again Shaman, Disc Priest or Paladin were probably the most sought after in those terms. To kind of summarize this whole part of getting invited, extremely toxic and elitist type of behavior, which I actually understand why people are doing it, because they're trying to get the highest chance of success. So all of a sudden all I can say is that if you're looking to solo or pug these high keys, it's all about the meta. The only time that I saw some off meta DPS, and that was like a Retribution Paladin, I did a 20 or a 19 the other side, I saw a Red Paladin, and the only reason I saw a Red Paladin in those cases was that because it was his or her key. So if you want to get or do these high keys, running your own key was probably going to be the best advice I can give you. In terms of community perception, honestly, it is extremely toxic. There's very little deviation from the so-called meta in these high keys, because I guess people want to get the highest chance of success, and I really want to hear your opinion about this. How do you feel about this? Again, let's go to the second section, and that's going to be preparation. Now preparation, this is not going to be a very long part of the video, because generally speaking guys, every or 90% of the pugs that I joined did not require a Discord server. Which again, there was no communication whatsoever. In terms of chat communication, honestly, a lot of these 20, even 21 keys, I would just see a route being posted by the tank, and that's about it. So you would just go through the route and see what's going on, and you'd be like, okay, that's fine, let's go. What is expected of you is that you should know how to maximize that dungeon. For example, if you're doing Theater of Pain as a Resto Druid or a Druid, you need to make sure that you're going to sue the targets in the first pull. If you don't do that, it's probably going to be a wipe. If, for example, if you're doing the other side and you're about to do Hakar, and the Prideful is going to spawn before Hakar, you kind of want to try and make sure as a DPS to hold your cooldowns and let the healer use their cooldowns to get past the Prideful, because Hakar needs every single DPS cooldown to get nuked down before the first shield or after the first shield. These are some of these things that are kind of untold, but you're expected to know because you're doing this high key and you should be min-maxing. So if you don't know the key inside out, I definitely recommend watching streamers or things like that, or streamers of your own class that you play, and see how they do the each keys and try pick up these tips and tricks, because generally speaking, in these pug situations, there is no hand holding. You kind of expected to know what to interrupt, what to stun, how to do the mechanics, and how to optimize mechanics that might not be very obvious for a lot of people. Because like I mentioned, there was basically it was very antisocial. Very few groups required Discord servers. Very few groups required communication outside of that. It was just basically send the route, put the key in, and let's go. So it was kind of interesting to see that. And the last part of the video that I want to talk about in terms of add-ons that I used, again, there was only a couple of add-ons that I felt were really cool. I have to mention Pre-Made Group Filter. Pre-Made Group Filter was great in terms of determining what classes are in the dungeon already, because sometimes, hey, they don't have a battle res, they don't have this specific class, or again, trying to optimize the group composition, and I thought Pre-Made Group Filter was really great. There are WeakCores that do similar things. Again, if you don't want add-ons, WeakCores can also really help out with that. And also Friend Group. This is an add-on that lets you sort your friends and like, hey, this is my DPS friend, this is my tank friend, this is my healer friend. And I thought that was important because a lot of the times, like I mentioned, there was no communication in these groups that I joined, but once in a while you would find a group that would join a Discord. Once in a while you would find players who would add you on a friend list, and they'd be like, hey, let's run keys later on. Let's join a group later on. And you get to kind of talk to these players over the next few days and things like that. And maybe you're gonna form your own group. And I think that is the end goal here. Solo mentality I experienced over the last couple of weeks trying to push keys. I do feel that the end goal is to find and form a 5-man group that you would consider friends and do it in the future. So I feel like adding those players to your friend list, keeping in touch with them, making sure that, hey, are you doing keys? Do you want to push keys together and things like that, is probably going to give you the highest chance of success in terms of enjoying the game and pushing your score. And I hope this video has kind of shed some light on my experience. I really want to know your opinion about the meta. I feel like I've never been, how do I say it? I've never seen this much meta picks in high-end content before. I just feel everyone was looking for those best classes and things like that, and I don't know how to feel about that. On one end, I feel like I get the point because they're trying to, you know, they're trying to give themselves the best chance to complete the key. On the other end, it's like, what if you play a red paladin? What if you don't play those meta classes? Will you ever be able to get invited to those keys? So again, one for the discussion here. Leave a comment below on how you feel about this video. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of adventure type of video, if you want me to do things like this in the future. And thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.